talked about what mentorship is, let's talk about some things that mentorship is not or never. Mentorship is never passive. Mentoring requires a conscious effort and a commitment on all parties involved. You can't expect great output with poor input. In fact, a great mentoring or mentoring program involves initial goal setting, frequent communication, and a constant desire on behalf of the mentee and mentor to learn and connect. Mentorship is never coaching or training. Coaching and training are typically time-bound. There may be a predetermined deadline, and there may be a predetermined or particular outcome. A mentorship relationship can be guided by time, but it can be reignited at any point. So there's really no constraints as it relates to the time period. Mentorship is not therapy. While a mentor is going to be great to be able to advise you through tough situations and potentially personal situations, it's always good to important to remember that your mentor is not your shrink. There should always be a constant undercurrent of positivity in your mentoring relationship. You should always be talking about moving forward and making progress and not dwelling on issues or troubles in a way that's going to bog down your mentorship relationship. And finally, mentorship is never a cure-all. It can do amazing things for an organization, such as improving your culture. It helps recruit better talent, increasing employee retention, promote diversity and inclusion within your organization. And it also can do some really good things for the individuals involved. That's increasing the likelihood of you getting a promotion, increasing your confidence, helping you with a career change or transition, helping you increase your leadership skills. So those are some things I'd like for you to keep in mind as you are developing your mentorship relationships. It's also important for you as the mentee or mentor to establish the why. Why seek a mentor, or why become a mentor? So when I was young, I benefited from the encouragement of some really wonderful mentors. They helped me see possibilities that I didn't know were there. They were models that I wanted to emulate as I tried to figure out who I wanted to be. There was one special relationship that I had that was with my grandmother. She possessed qualities and characteristics that I really admired. She showed me how to make dreams a reality. She wasn't just my grandmother, but I also considered her a good friend. I would watch her come home after working a long 8-hour shift, prepare dinner, clean the house, and then go to her GED classes 3 nights a week in her late 50s. Another mentorship relationship that was very meaningful to me was my relationship with Sergeant Hamilton. She was someone that I met early in my military career because I chose a job, a crane operator, that was in a male-dominated field. I wanted to do something that was outside of the box. She was a person who helped me because she understood, because she had been in my shoes. She was actually the person who called me to tell me that I was going to be deployed. So just imagine being a college student, receiving a call saying, you have 3 days to get your affairs in order. I mean, talk about overwhelming. But do you know what helped make my transition a lot easier? Sergeant Hamilton. I mean, I can't tell you how many times we had late night tent conversations under the Iraqi stars, just kind of letting me vent and talk about how I wanted to achieve my goals, and her offering guidance. So fast forward to 5 years later, after I leave the military, our paths would cross again. As I mentioned, I worked at the Department of Veteran Affairs, and going to lunch one day, who did I see walking down the hallway? You guessed it, Sergeant Hamilton. Needless to say, we rekindled our relationship, and we kept that relationship going until my departure from the VA. Both of these mentorships, though very different, really provided me with a solid foundation of who I am today. So one of the reasons why I chose myself to be a mentor is because I saw that potential in a person that they had not yet realized that they had, and I wanted to pour into them like I had been poured into. So when we think about that, let's look at some essential elements of mentorship, or the big three, as I like to call them. Before entering into a mentorship relationship, there's some things that I want you to consider as it relates to your own personal capacity. Your attitude. Your attitude is key. Are you in a place mentally to foster a mentee-mentor relationship? Are you willing to share what you know? Are you open to the fact that your mentoring partner could be different from you, meaning culturally, functionally, or in age? Can you provide feedback, and can you receive honest feedback? When we think about the commitment of mentorship, what does your availability look like? Do you have time to commit, and do you have the mental capacity to give your partner that attention? How long will the relationship last? Will it be a few months, a few years, or a lifetime? And finally, there is an accountability. There is an accountability that must exist between the two people. Expectations of your mentoring partner should be established in the beginning so both parties are responsible. Having that clear understanding is going to help you have the most impactful relationship. So when we think about mentorship relationships, think about what are some qualities of a great mentor. When you're looking for a mentor or yourself as a mentee, you want to make sure that the person that you choose demonstrates some of these qualities. You want to have someone that has an audacity or a boldness to speak up and provide you with feedback and offer their wisdom and their knowledge. You want to make sure that there's some level of vulnerability. As you may want to grow close to your mentee, you'll want them to be able to share challenges that he or she may face, which is going to allow an openness to exchange information. You want your mentor to be enthusiastic about what he or she is doing, because they're going to bring that same energy to your relationship, in turn helping motivate you reach your goals. So let's talk more about what a great mentor is. A great mentor can admit their own biases and areas of ignorance. A great mentor is going to ask their mentee about their goals, hopes, dreams, and help that mentee work toward reaching those goals. A great mentee is going to encourage their mentee to dream big. A great mentor is going to encourage their mentee to dream big. But they're also going to help them set realistic and doable goals along the way. And last but not least, great mentors deserve gratitude and appreciation. As I was a young person, I didn't always fully appreciate the extra time and attention that my mentors were giving me. But I realized that now, and I am absolutely grateful for all of the things that they have done and how they poured into me. So I've talked about what I consider to be great qualities. Now I'd like for us to have an opportunity to discuss in the chat these questions that I pose to you. What qualities do you have, and what qualities are important to you as a mentee and mentor? So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, just so I can see some of the responses, and we can kind of discuss some of those qualities that are being put into the chat. I'm seeing integrity, commitment, honesty, being a good listener, honesty, life experiences, communication, insightful, thinking outside of the box. I like that. Patience, humble behavior, flexibility. These are all great qualities that we all have. So what are some qualities that are important to you? I'm sure some of those answers may overlap as we talked about qualities that you have and then qualities that are important to you. Sense of humor, definitely. I'd say someone that likes Harry Potter in my case, but maybe not. Cultural competence, that's a really good one. Accountability, honesty. You guys are awesome with some of these characteristics that you are putting in the chat. Open-mindedness, kindness, flexibility. Flexibility is extremely important as we are going through this new COVID era. Personality is ideal, I agree. Those were all some awesome responses that you all included in the chat there. Super insightful and super helpful. And I'm so appreciative that you would share just your thoughts with the group. So as we talk about how are you going to interact as a mentee with your mentor, or what are some techniques that can be used as you develop your relationship? So the first technique that I would like to talk about is accompanying. This is where the mentor participates in the learning process right alongside the learner and also gives them support as the learning is occurring. Then we have sewing. This is where the mentor may initially give unclear or unacceptable advice to the learner, and then it has value in a given situation. And then there is the catalyzing. This is where the mentor chooses just to kind of plunge the learner into a change, just to kind of provoke a different way of thinking, a change in identity, or just kind of reordering of values. And then we have showing. This is where the mentor teaches the learner by demonstrating the skill or activity. And then we reach our harvesting technique, where this is where the mentor is going to assess and define the utility values of the learner's skills. Another reason why I chose that Harry Potter clip, because you can kind of see some of these mentoring techniques that are demonstrated in that scene. I just think that if you can incorporate some of these things as you begin to build your mentorships or relationships, keep these things top of mind, you'll definitely be successful as you build your programs and you interact with different people. I would have a charge for you today. I'm going to ask that you all become a giant. And what I mean by that is become a giant so someone else can stand on your shoulders. We are all here because of the work that has been done by someone else before us. So if we can begin to impart our knowledge and wisdom and become mentors to others, we can allow them to become great and reach their dreams and goals and aspirations. So I charge you today to become a giant as you are going out and you're going to be a mentor. Now, this is actually going to conclude my topics of discussion, or my topics for today, but we have plenty of time if the group would like to just kind of have open discussion, or if we have any questions. Again, I want to thank you all for just tuning in today, and I will let Mara, if we have any questions, I'll open it up to you, and I'll actually stop sharing my screen, but I'll come back with my contact information as well.
This was great, Amy. I appreciate all of this. I would love to encourage all of the participants today, if you have questions specifically for Amy, please feel free to put them in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. If you have items that you want to communicate to all of the attendees, please feel free to put it in the chat. Amy, one question we have, is it safe to say that training tends to be temporary or short-lived while mentoring is typically a lasting or forever relationship?
Spot on. Typically that mentorships, they are those lasting, long life opportunities or relationships. When I think about my own personal, there's still people that I go back to now to get advice from. I didn't mention all of my mentors, but of course, each position that I've held, I've had someone that acts as a mentor to me. So yeah, training I think is temporary, but having that mentorship relationship can be a lifelong benefit.
Another question came in. What are some strategies for mentoring young adults who may have experienced trauma? How do you balance being available while not crossing over into the surrogate therapist role, particularly when you're not qualified to fit that?
That's a good question. I think a lot of it is listening. A lot of people that have suffered trauma sometimes don't have that feeling of support where someone has listened to them. So I think a lot of it starts from just really being a good listener and just kind of offering feedback that way. Because again, you don't want to cross over into the therapy vein because that's not your wheelhouse. But I think oftentimes lending an ear of listening is always a good strategy that you can kind of incorporate with dealing with people. And then doing your own research just to kind of understand if that person has shared that particular trauma. Do your own research so you can kind of understand what that person has dealt with so you can be empathetic in your relationship.
Another question, does Shaw have a mentorship program? How did you get it started, or recommendations for starting one at a university?
Shaw, we have paused our mentorship program as of now, but we want to kind of go back with the alumni connection or network and really be able to make those connections that way. So just kind of putting the call out to your alumni to see who would be interested. You can start with your alumni if you have different faculty or staff members that would like to serve as a mentor, and then kind of one thing that we did at Cisco that was very effective, or just organizations that I've worked for, kind of doing a list or inventory of interest. If you want to match and pair, or how do I make a good match? Think about what are your outside interests? How can that be a connection point? If you have someone that has a particular major, that's always a good way that you can pair people with mentorships, and just career interest or life goals. Those are good ways that you can kind of start your mentor-mentee relationships and just kind of get the program running. I always say it's better to start small than kind of having a grand scale. You can start with a small test population, a small group of people, and then kind of expand from there. I'm trying to see the questions. I think you're still muted.
Oh, so sorry. My dogs were barking. One of those things about working from home, right? How do you handle conflicts with a mentee or a situation where a mentee crosses the boundaries?
I think to really help avoid that from initially, it's good to set expectations. When you first start with your mentor-mentee relationships, you have to have a clear understanding between the two. I think it's best if there is kind of a violation of the relationship, that it's best to address it in a professional tone. You can speak freely. As you're developing that relationship, you should have an understanding of maybe how that person receives information, so that way you can kind of say, hey, you crossed the line, and moving forward, this is what I expect out of our relationship, and kind of go from there.
What are some topics that are important in training mentors at the beginning throughout a semester?
I think one is going to be establishing the goals, and goal setting is going to be key, because what are you mentoring for? What is the relationship? What do you, as the mentee or the mentor, want to get out of the relationship? What are your outcomes? So establishing the outcomes is probably going to be the best and first thing that I would do.
How often would you suggest meeting with a student during the school year? And should this be scheduled meetings for the semester?
I think that all depends on your availability and your mentee's availability. I have seen what really works well. There's a mentoring plan where you and your mentor, upon that kind of first meeting, you sit down and you establish a timeline. Of course, you can have your more informal coffee chats or just kind of stop by the office. I had something that was really important that I wanted to talk to you about. And then there should also be that scheduled time. But I think that's really gonna matter upon your individual schedules and what your availability looks like, how accessible you are.
What do you do if the mentee leaves after getting started or after some time after starting, the mentor does not want mentor does not want the relationship to end?
Ugh, that's a tough one. Naturally, you would want to I would reach out to the person and just kind of ask and see what's going on. Because again, we talked about how mentoring doesn't necessarily have a time limit or time constraints. There may be an opportunity. This person could be going through some personal things where, you know what, I'm not in a space to be in a mentoring relationship, but there's an opportunity maybe after this kind of passes that we can go back and revisit it. So I would just kind of extend myself and say, you know, I'm open to the possibility of us rekindling this. I'm open anytime you want to come back. But again, you can't force a mentorship on someone who isn't really ready to receive it or be in that type of relationship.
Is it effective to have cross-cultural relationships, or should we steer away from that?
I think it is effective. Cultural competency is big. And I feel that if you can, we all have things that make us different, but we also have things that connect us. So those cross-cultural relationships, I definitely see there's a need for that.
In the workplace, what are some practical tips for finding a mentor, and what would that look like practically?
So for me, I kind of look at the position and the person. When I was at the Department of Veteran Affairs, I knew that my end goal was I wanted to be an administrative officer within the Department of Veteran Affairs. So I had to put myself out there and find out who are the administrative officers within my building or my network. So once I figured out who those people were, I just kind of said, hey, you know what? How did you get to where you're at? I am super interested in just kind of your whole journey, your career. How did you get there? I'm newly in the ranks. I'm trying to figure it out. Typically, all it takes is a conversation with people, and most people are open to that. Once I kind of said, I'm interested in how did you get there? Would you mind just kind of having a conversation with me, maybe over coffee? That's how I started one of my relationships, mentorships, just because it was kind of figuring out what my goals were and then who can help me accomplish those goals. You're muted.
Thank you. Someone had asked at their job, someone had offered to be a mentor pre-COVID, and they were honored. How should they reach out to them, being that they are in such a high position? This was someone in a leadership position at their institution.
So let me make sure I understand the question correctly. So someone in leadership was asked to be a mentor?
They offered to be a mentor.
Oh, they offered to be a mentor that's to someone that's just newly coming into the ranks? Okay. I would just kind of, again, send a follow-up email of some sort and just say, hey, I see some awesome, whatever it was that attracted you to that person where you wanted to be in a mentoring relationship with them. I would kind of lead with that and say, hey, you exhibit XYZ qualities. I want to make myself available as a resource to help you reach whatever career goals that you have that while you're here with our organization. Any way that I can help you, I'm here. And kind of leave the door open for them to kind of walk through it.
Amy, have you ever had someone ask you to be their mentor, and have you ever said no?
I have had someone ask me to be their mentor. I have not said no. Typically, if someone puts themselves out there to ask, they want my help. And I'm one of those helper personalities, so I wouldn't say no. Well, I haven't said no. I won't say I won't say no, but if I was, because I had the time to be able to invest into the relationship, yes, I was a mentor, and I still serve as one.
Someone had said, am I being offered the opportunity to mentor someone connected to Shaw or Wake Tech? This would be a great opportunity.
Yes, please use my contact information. I'll put my contact information slide back up so we can kind of connect one-on-one in any way that I can help you. I'd certainly be happy to do so.
What are some healthy environments for the mentee and mentor to meet?
Well, given the COVID era, unfortunately, kind of Zoom is becoming the new normal. But everything doesn't necessarily have to be in person. We kind of go away from phone calls, but a phone call is sometimes just as good as an in-person meeting. I think if you can hear someone talk, it has more effectiveness than versus email. We all kind of get caught up in the email traffic, and I think it's less personal. You can infer tone on emails versus just kind of having a conversation. So for me, the ideal environment is, what do you like? You can go to the park. What are some of those outside interests? If you and your mentee share some of the same interests, you can kind of maybe meet at a spot that, if you like painting, meet at the museum, have some of those casual conversations. My husband tells a joke, some of the best deals are made on the golf course. If there's a place that feels like home to you, to both you and your mentee mentor, why not go there? Go in an environment that you're going to be comfortable.
Definitely. Do you have a check sheet that you use or a guide that you follow?
I do. So typically when when I have developed a program, I start with the goals, making sure that if the program, the mentor-menteeship is in line with the goals, what are we doing here? A lot of companies, which I have seen in corporate, we don't want another mentorship program. Like, what's going to make this one unique? What makes this one different? So just kind of figuring out the need for that particular type of mentorship program, because again, it can exist in higher education, whether it's student to faculty, student to employer, or even just kind of employees to employee type of mentorship. So I think it's important to establish the why. That's going to be my first thing with the checklist, and then making sure that the expectations are put out there in the beginning. You don't want to get into a relationship where it's like signing up for a bad contract. You don't read the fine print. Just making sure that everything that you want to obtain from the relationship is put out there from beginning, and then just kind of going by that, and then having check-ins. That's very important. When you're meeting with your mentee, you've had the goals, you've discussed what the goals are. So what's the progress or the progress report look like when you're talking to your mentee? So you set a goal of doing X, Y, Z. Where are you at in that process? What are some tools or some things that I can do to help you accomplish those goals? So that's kind of like the checklist that I go by. Is it written down in a book? No, but it's a mental note that I kind of make sure I check off all of those things as I'm designing and developing those programs. Thank you for that. Museum and Parks has a socially distanced seating and walking paths. That is an awesome place to go.
And thank you, Dr. Rayner, for including Ms. Hedgepeth's information. If the mentee has an extenuating circumstance in addition to being mentored, how much and how far should the mentor go with giving? With the COVID-19 virus threatening all of us, what are some of your recommendations?
I would say, in order for you to be an effective mentor, don't overextend yourself. Like, what is your capacity? If you don't have the capacity to do that, don't do it. I hate to be as blunt as I am with that, but if your capacity isn't in the right place, or you don't have the time to be able to do it, don't do it. I know with COVID, things are different for everybody. And I think it's just a matter of, again, open communication. That's going to really help your mentee-mentor relationship. If you're communicating with them, this week is really heavy for me. I'm not going to be able to meet with you as much as I'd like to, or I have some things that's going on and I need to take a step back from our relationship. It's okay to do that. You don't have to be accessible to someone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in a mentoring relationship.
Do you believe in gifts to motivate, or if the mentee accomplishes a goal?
I think just the overall satisfaction of them accomplishing the goal is the gift in itself. to be able to talk about, well, this is the goal, this is when we set the goal, and just kind of offering your feedback of, you know, when I first met you, this is where you were at, and now look where you're at today. I wouldn't necessarily give a gift to motivate, because that motivation should be intrinsic and it should come from that mentee. Of course, you're going to be a cheerleader for them to help motivate them, but not a gift. But if you want to, it's totally up to you, but I wouldn't base my relationship off of that kind of, you get a gift when you complete a goal.
Do mentees get any education about what a mentor is?
I'm going to answer that in two-part. Depending on the setting, most academic institutions, they have a description of what their mentee program is about and why you should join that. And then on the corporate side, there's always kind of, we're inviting you, or we have this network of mentee mentors. Yes, this is the information on what your relationship could be, what it could look like. Typically, there's a blueprint that's provided, and you kind of go from there to figure out which is going to be the most meaningful relationship for you. Oh, you guys had some good questions.
I don't see any other questions. Please feel free to use the chat if you have more questions. We have just a little bit more time left. Oh. One thing that I will say, Amy, I've had relationships with as a mentor with professional mentees, so those that are in the professional world, but then also I've had young adults and students who I've mentored in their career in higher education. And I think that sometimes it's very important to distinguish what their experiences are in mentoring. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between your mentorship relationships in the corporate world versus in higher education?
Okay, of course. So in higher education, I feel like there is more of a personal touch added to it, just because in corporate, I hate to say this, but you can kind of get lost in a number, and there might not be as much accessibility. I can use Cisco for example. The type of mentor-mentee relationships, you might have a senior manager that's paired with a college student. Realistically, how much time is that senior manager going to be able to devote to that student? Versus in higher education, I have students or colleagues that can drop by in a dime and we can have a conversation about what's going on, how can I assist you, what are some things that you're going through, or what do you want to talk about? I find that in the higher education setting that it's more of a personalized touch versus corporate. It's really more of a, it's a relationship, but it's more of how can I get to the next place? And I don't want to say that it's not as a meaningful relationship, but I think in the higher ed space, you really get to build some of those more lifelong connections versus in the corporate.
I 100% agree. A question came in. What is an appropriate way to end a relationship with a non-professional mentee?
Well, I think sometimes just delivery, for me, I'm going to tell a story because this is, I use this as an example. I've actually used this as an example talking to my mentees. So I don't know if you all are familiar. I love to kind of be able to incorporate things that we watch on TV to real life. So don't deliver things. It's all in presentation. There was an episode for all of my Cosby kids. If you watched the Cosby Show, there was an episode where Vanessa brung her fiance and it was just a total shock. And Dr. Huxtable gave the analogy of you presented it on a garbage can lid. So I think it's all in the delivery. You can end the relationship and be respectful and just say, you know, I think that our relationship may have ran its course. I wish you the best. And you don't have to drag out the relationship. Again, you don't want to be involved in something that you're not comfortable with or fully committed, because it's not going to be fair on the mentee's part or your part, because you're not going to get the most out of the relationship. So just kind of just being honest and saying, hey, I think it's ran its course. I wish you luck in finding your next mentor, that type of thing.
Do you mentor any kids, specifically ages 8 through 16?
When I was back in college, I was with a program called Operation Sunshine. So I would go there a few days a week and mentor young girls that were at risk around that same age frame, but it was 12 to 17. So I have mentored young girls and boys.
Do you find yourself mentoring coworkers or students now that you're in higher ed?
I do. And now I don't call them mentorships necessarily. I call them friendships or relationships, just because you find yourselves, even after students graduate. I have several students that have graduated, but we still have those Zoom meetings that are set, that we kind of do those check-ins of, okay, well, you told me you were doing this. Where are you at now with that process? So I do find myself sometimes mentoring coworkers. I'll speak to a relationship that I had at Florida Atlantic University. When I first came in, I actually came in as an assistant director on the internship team. And there was another assistant director that was there. And I kind of rose through the ranks rather quickly. And she kind of was still in the same spot. And when my team formed, there was an opening. I was going out on maternity leave, and I knew that she would be the awesome person to take my spot when I was going out on leave to the College of Engineering. Now, some of my colleagues were a little bit leery just because that was one of the bigger colleges. It was a very crucial relationship. But because I knew that, you know what, she has the potential, and low-key, she has taught me some things. Like, she has been a right hand to me. So not only do I feel like I served as a mentor to her, she served as a mentor to me, because I was new coming into the organization. She helped me just kind of figure out and navigate the university, whereas I might have lacked in just the know-how of how to navigate the different people. I kind of help coach her, or I gave her advice on how to be more assertive. You know this content, you're the person who helped build it. I know that you can do the job, so do it, be great. I'm gonna give you this opportunity because I know that you can do it. And we still talk to this day, and she is doing an amazing job, and she actually took over the team. So I think one of the great things about being a mentor is, again, being a giant to allow someone else to kind of come behind you and take over the reins. Yes, Operation Sunshine is still in Greenville.
Do you recommend any training or skill building for mentors?
There are some really good, this is going to sound so kind of generic, but there are some really good TED Talks on YouTube just about mentorship in itself. So if you really just want to, if there's a specific topic, whether it's in higher education or if you're talking about corporate America, you can literally listen all day to mentorship TED Talks on YouTube. That's a good place that you'd start. As I was doing my research just to kind of be able to have this conversation today, there's a lot of things that you can pay for, but I'm all about free. And those of you that are in higher education, you know, free is best. So I would really just kind of start looking at some of those TED Talks, because they have some amazing content that's out there that I've listened to. You can pay for it, but why pay for it when it's free?
We at CRC love free professional development, so we appreciate that. Would you teach your family how to be mentors?
I would. I had a conversation with my husband before this morning. I said, you know what? When I think about it, you've been a mentor to me, because he's been in higher education much longer than I have. And there's plenty of times where I will bounce something off of him and say, hey, can you read over this email? I don't want to make sure I have any tone on, or what would you do in this situation? Or have you encountered this situation? And then I'll admit I have two small children. I have a daughter. two daughters, and I definitely want them to mentor. I want them to be able to show people. I see the big one exhibiting those qualities now to the smaller one, just kind of saying, come here, let me show you how to do sewing in, the big sister sewing into the small sister. So mommy and daddy get to harvest all of the mentoring techniques that are being kind of incorporated in our household. So I would definitely teach my family to mentor.
And I definitely think in this work from home environment, I know in my household, my husband has suddenly become my coworker too, because I don't have one down the hall to read an email or read over something I've written. So he gets asked to be my coworker all the time.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments?
Well, I'm going to share my contact information again for everyone. I would love to connect with all of you. You have my email address here at Shaw, and then I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn. And if there's any insight that I can help provide to you, I'm always open to hear other people's stories. I think knowledge is power. So as many people that I can get talking about mentorship is super awesome and great. And again, thank you all today for your time and attention. I look forward to the next workshop.
Absolutely. And we do plan on continuing the mini series into the spring semester. I need to thank the planning committee members that helped with this specific workshop. Kayla Beavers from William Peace, Katie Maris from Shaw University, Jessica Craig from Wake Tech, and Valencia Harris from Meredith. Thank you all for participating in our committee. I will be sending a survey out shortly after we conclude here today, so we can get some feedback about how we thought this workshop went, and for suggestions moving forward for topics into the spring. So please make sure that you fill out that survey and let us know how we're doing. And thank you so much, Amy. This was incredible. And thank you for all the insight.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Bye.